talk to Shawn, the owner of Mountain Rose Herbs, about how this organization, which is such an influential force, both in terms of the goods that we consume, as well as for the environmental mission and principles that it stands for, where it's come from. So yeah, briefly, my name's Raj. I'm the founder of Young Mountain Tea. We work with farmers in Indian Hall. And when I was setting up the company, the idea was to figure out a way to have a mission-based organization that could be financially viable, grow. And certainly a lot of the cues that I took from were from the work of Mountain Rose Herbs. And so it was probably like 4 or 5 years into the journey of Young Mountain that I met Shawn for the first time. And
can you remind me where that was at?
It was at your facility on.
That's right. It was a part of a tour, right?
That's right. Yes. And I was like, who is this force? And it's been such a joy over the last 5, 6 years to get to know you and your work better. And Shawn, I think it was in last August, was giving some of our team members a tour of the facility again. And while we're driving between the different locations, Shawn was sharing just the story of Mountain Rose, and it was so compelling that I thought this is a story that we should find a way to share. So that's the goal of today. And I've asked Shawn,
I didn't know it was going to be all about me and us.
Yes, this is the story of Mountain Rose. But I did ask Shawn to begin by talking a little bit about your personal journey. And then we'll get to the Mountain Rose part, and we'll definitely have time at the end for questions, assuming that's okay if we run a little over. But Shawn, to begin, to pass it off to you, please, if you would, give us the beginning part of, starting with Latchkey to Nevada City.
Oh yeah, right.
If you would.
Well, first off, if any of you ever want this space, if you're hosting an event or, a yoga class or anything, please contact the Mercantile next door. The space is available to the community free of charge. So if you ever need it for any community intrinsic purposes, we give it to you free of charge. Me and Mountain Rose, well, I'm not going to go back to my childhood, but I was a radical environmental activist. I was engaged with an organization called Earth First. Earth First was really popular in the 70s, 80s, and 90s for its unique blend of radical environmentalism. They were the ones that invented the monkey wrench and the tree spiking of the 80s and 90s. I wasn't engaged with that. Julia Butterfly Hill, most of you probably know about her, but she was an Earth Firster as well. So I was engaged with a lot of Earth First campaigns in Northern California in the mid-90s when I was between the ages of 19 and 24. And I was a full-time activist, but by the time 24, 25 came around, I realized that financial realities were suddenly becoming a burden to my life. And I had to get a job. And the prospects of getting a job were terrifying. I opened a newspaper, and there was an advertisement for a small herb company called Mountain Rose Herbs, just outside of Nevada City, that was hiring for a warehouse worker. I went into the interview, and Julie, my ex-domestic partner and professional partner, I bought her out of Mountain Rose 3 years ago. She interviewed me, we hit it off beautifully. I had covered up all my tattoos, took out all my piercings, removed all my spike collars and spike bracelets. And I started working in the warehouse. We had 3 employees back then, including Julie. So there were just 3 people who were working at the company.
So there's you, Julie, and one other person?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And at the time, Julie was going through a divorce. And I said, let me run this company, but also I want to develop a web presence and I want to digitize our marketing. This was in 1998, 1999. Amazon and eBay were brand new on the scene. So you can imagine how revolutionary it was for a small herb company to say, we want to digitize our content. We want to create an e-commerce company. And at the time I had put my activism to the side, but I was beginning to inject my radical principles into the organization. We adopted a strict organic only policy, which to this day has never been replicated in the industry. And the reason why that is because I was an organizer for an indigenous rights group called the California Indian Basket Weavers Association. Sounds fluffy, but it's not. It's an organization that maintains the cultural tradition of Indian basket weaving in Northern California, but it also acts as an advocacy organization to take on agencies like the U.S. Forest Service and the BLM, because that's where indigenous communities gather a lot of their materials. I was involved in a campaign that involved numerous Native Yurok women that were dealing with cancerous wounds on their mouths and their thumbs.
And just to make sure, this is totally independent of Mountain Rose?
It is, but it's going to tie into the organic policy.
Yep.
And the cancerous wounds on these women's hands and fingers made me realize that no matter what I did in my future life, I wanted to steer clear of any and all chemical applications, pesticides, herbicides, don't want to deal in anything that involves chemical applications. So when I came to Mountain Rose, I told Julie, I said, we need to adopt a strict organic only policy. We also need to become fair trade certified. A lot of you may know about fair trade certification, but we were the first herbal company to actually cultivate and import medicinal herbs that were fair trade certified. Back then, it was cocoa, bananas, and tea. That was the only fair trade products available in the late 90s, early 2000s. Now you can buy fair trade clothing, you can buy fair trade celery. But so we were really revolutionary with, our mission driven. We were now beginning to adopt mission driven principles. And then also when I became an employee at Mountain Rose, Julie wasn't recycling. It seems really trivial, but she wasn't recycling, she wasn't composting. I wanted to ensure that we recycled everything we possibly could, and we composted everything we possibly could. You got to remember, this is 99, 2000. Yeah. And then fast forward, back to 2007, we became organs first, and we remain organs only, truly certified zero waste company. There's no certified zero. So it was my radical blend of activism that started beginning the transformative stages of Mountain Rose. But also when Julie was going through her divorce, to go back to my story, I said, I'm going to digitize our content, create a website. I'm going to run this company for you while you go through the divorce. She was going through that divorce for a year. She comes back. We pretty much triple in size. We have a web presence.
So the web presence immediately jump started?
It was immediate. It like tripled sales within 2 months.
Yeah.
But she also liked what I was doing from a sustainability point of view. I was really beginning to enhance her values and my values within the organization. You got to remember, I'm an anarchist, I'm an activist, and I'm an environmentalist. I hate capitalism, still do. I hate money, and I hate industry. And I wanted to grow Mountain Rose, not to make money. Money was never on my radar. In fact, I didn't start making money until like 5-10 years ago. But money was never on my radar. I knew that every environmental issue that I was dealing with as an activist came down to industry, business, and corporations. Like those three things were the main proponents of environmental degradation. And I wanted to create a business model that was a prototype or a blueprint for other companies to change the way they conducted themselves on this planet.
Yes.
And to this day, Glory Bay Foods, Hummingbird Wholesale, Yogi Tea, all of them have gotten consultation and instruction from Mountain Rose on how to create a green tea, how to create a nonprofit partnership program, how to create a community incentive program, how to become zero waste certified. And for me, that's why I love and adore Mountain Rose, because we are this agent of change. And on a funny side note, whenever I tell people in Eugene that I own Mountain Rose, they always say, "Oh, I just love your adorable little store." And I'm like, we've got a lot more than a little store, but thank you. Yeah, so we have about 16 farms throughout the Northwest. We have about 200 employees, and we have 6 industrial campuses and 2 retail stores. And we're actually going to be going to Portland the next week or 2 to open another mercantile in the Portland area. We're going to go national with the mercantile model. It's really successful. It's tremendously successful. So Portland will be our second location.
Awesome.
Sure, you asked for the time, and I told you how to build a clock. Sorry.
No, thanks. This is a wonderful way to seed lots of questions for all of us. So I'm going to kind of facilitate that and start with things, but we can just transition into a conversation if you want to jump in. But I have a couple for myself. First of all, can you share with us what was the origin of your radical nature? Was there any moments?
Living in Orange County, California.
Okay.
Yeah, I was an only child. I was living in Orange County, California. And we would take vacations to Nevada City, California, which is the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas. And I would always go there as a little kid, 8, 9 years old, romp around the woods completely by myself, and realizing I was connecting with something deep. I didn't have the vocabulary for it because I'm 6, 7, 8 years old, but I knew that didn't know what the word spiritual was then, but I knew I was having this feeling inside of my body that was eliciting this feeling of adoration, and not just adoration, but like I want to protect and defend this, and I want to keep this for as long as I can. Then I go back to Orange County, which at the time was a Republican stronghold of Southern California. It's 86% registered Republican, concrete jungle. Orange County gave birth to the modern movement called the suburbs. It was developed in Orange County. We got our suburban environments from Orange County. The idea of a theme park invented by Walt Disney, Anaheim, California, Orange County. Like, this was a direct antithesis of the values that I knew I had inside of me. Then I found punk rock, and not just punk rock as loud music, but punk rock is a musical movement that advocated fierce political change.
Yeah.
Punk rock has its roots in social change, from the Clash to the Sex Pistols, but I was primarily engaged in what was known as the UK 82 movement, that was hardcore anarchism, injected political punk rock. And
Can I interrupt you just for 1 second to share
it.
one thing that I think might be familiar? This music
That's crass. It's my favorite band. I didn't have the logo tattooed on my body, but it was that album. It was that album. I was 15 years old, and I went to Hollywood with some friends, and I bought that particular album. And that album was banned in the UK and Scotland. It was so political. And you open up the jacket, and there's all this political imagery of like war and massacres and SEALs getting slaughtered and famine, and they're singing aggressively about how fucked up the world is. I'm 15, and I'm going, oh my God, the world really is fucked up. Nobody told me, and I've got to change this, and the change begins with me. From that day forward, I became an activist. I was 15. I heard what was wrong with the world. I was an only child. I lived in the suburbs. My parents were, not politically engaged at all. So I didn't know about any of these issues. And that's when I became fierce with my activism.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And so I have to share that I was cheating because Shawn did another recent interview where he shared that was his favorite album. So taking from that. But you, in that same interview, shared a line that really has stayed with me, that you said for you in your journey, your assessment of the accuracy of this line has shifted. And that line was that idealism is the final luxury of youth.
Oh, so true. Wow, good memory. Idealism is youth's final luxury.
Thank you.
And it's kind of true. Like I said, when I was 24, I was faced with financial burdens. I had to make money. I had to court capitalism. But also, it's not entirely not true either, because I figured out a way to not abandon idealism and to actually bring it into Mountain Rose and have it be front and center. There was a 4 or 5 year period when I became an owner of Mountain Rose that I put my activism to the side because I had to earn my brass in business. I had to wrap my head around what am I doing, and how do I make money, and how do I run a company, and how do I grow a company, and how do I market a company, and how do I build a website? So I put my activism to the side. But once I earned my brass, I was like, bam, we're gonna become a political organization. And in fact, we are. Mountain Rose is a political organization. Not too many people know this, but in 2016, I was on the board of directors for Oregon Wild, and we were lobbying our legislators at the state capitol on a wolf bill, it was HB 4040. And at the time, Mountain Rose was really passionate, engaged, and we had an advertising campaign that promoted the defense of wild wolves in the state of Oregon. We got loads of hate mail about that. Literally, we got death threats and we got hate mail for that. But I was at the state capitol, and I realized that the environmental community, environmentalists in particular, have absolutely positively no voice at the state capitol. None. It's the least of the legislators' concerns. They're not concerned about it. Homelessness, schools, budget, housing, those are the issues that take up the bandwidth. So when we're there lobbying on behalf of wolves, the legislators are like, this is not my issue. Like, this is not my issue. I'm not gonna take a vote either way. I walked away from that experience, and I realized I want to have Mountain Rose create a super PAC, and I want Mountain Rose to hire a lobbyist, And I want Mountain Rose to actually create environmental bills.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what we did. So in 2016, we created a super PAC to the tune of $300,000 a year that was injected into the political climate in the state of Oregon. We hired a staff lobbyist, Jonathan Manton, brand new. I believe you met Jonathan. And we drafted 3 bills. One banned chlorpyrifos. It's a cancer-causing chemical. It's used in the Christmas tree industry. The second one we created was to increase the footage for streamside buffers for timber harvesting practices. And then the third was to defund the fish hatchery budget for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, because that budget goes to the hatchery program. I'm a wild fish advocate, and I believe that hatchery fish are actually diluting the gene pool of our wild salmon. That one died. The chlorpyrifos ban, that was our bill. It actually passed. Doing chlorpyrifos, it's now banned in the state of Oregon, and streamside buffers have been increased. That was our bill as well. So to go back to idealism, is you find a luxury. It's true for most people, not all. I guess it just depends on what stage in your life you were at.
Yeah.
You know, right now I'm putting my activism to the side because I spoke to you earlier about how I'm on a personal spiritual journey to find out who I am.
Yes.
But I know I'm going to come back to it. I was hanging out with Jonathan Manton, our lobbyist, just a couple of weeks ago. We were at Cascade Head just outside of Lincoln City, and we're talking about the bills that he's working on right now. And I could sense I was getting mildly excited about it. And John was like, come,
The fire is getting relit.
come. And I'm like, let me think about it, Jonathan. It's really expensive, but yeah, let me think about it.
Yeah, but congratulations on your recent retirement. That hopefully maybe creates a space for you to engage in these new areas in different ways.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll ask one more and then we can open it up for questions from everybody else. But this being the Eugene Tea Festival, we are in the Mountain Rose facility annex, a building owned by it. But the company started in Nevada City. So can you tell us a little bit about the decision to move the business into the area?
Actually, the business goes back to 1987. It was founded in Humboldt County.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so herbalist by the name of Rosemary Gladstar. In our industry, everybody's got a hippie name. She had founded the beginnings of Mountain Rose because she wanted to provide an herbal outlet for her students at the California School of Herbal Studies, which she had founded in the 70s. Rosemary Gladstar also co-founded Traditional Medicinals, the tea company. Some of you guys might be familiar with that. She had it for about a year or two, and then she sold it to Rose Madrone, another hippie name. Rose Madrone was a good friend of Julie, my ex, and the previous owner of Mountain Rose. She was good friends with Rose Madrone. Rose Madrone, no surprise there, especially if you knew her, had no business acumen, none whatsoever. And she kept it for about a year or two and sold it to Julie in 1991. Julie bought it for the astounding sum of $3,000.
Oh, wow.
And
she did that.
yep, and then Julie created the catalog, and she continued to operate it out of Garberville and Redway.
And was always selling to end consumers?
Yeah, just retail. Yeah, just retail. She wanted to get out of Garberville because the marijuana industry was booming there. It was kind of changing the culture and the community and the metronome. And she's not anti-pot, but it was getting dangerous. People were dying, and there were organized grow rings and a lot of like Bulgarians and Russians coming in, and it just got icky. So she moved it to Nevada City. And when she moved it to Nevada City, that's when she put the ad in the paper that I had seen. But she knew who I was already, because I was engaged in local news. I was constantly making the front page.
You don't strike me as somebody who would blend into a small town.
No, not at all. No. I mean, people were like famous radical activists in Nevada City. So when I went in for the interview, I'm trying to conceal my appearance because at the time I had dreads and spikes and studs. And when I walked in, she went, "I know who you are." And I went, "Fuck." But of course, she earned her brass with Earth First as well. She was involved with the Environmental Protection Information Center at Humboldt County. So we operated out of Nevada City for just like 3 or 4 years, and Julie wanted to move out of Nevada City because of the divorce. She wanted to get away from the history and just the weight of it all. I was going through a divorce as well. I wanted to get out of California. I wanted a fresh start. And we were looking all over the country. We had looked at North Carolina. We had looked at Austin, Texas. We thought about Washington. Oregon was never on my radar. Oregon was like the logging state, the weird rednecky logging state with big trucks and shit like that. But my friend at the time, this was the summer of '99, gave me a copy of Harper's Magazine, and inside was a 12-page. It was actually, it was the cover issue, but it was a 12-page article on the anarchists in Eugene.
Okay.
And about the World Trade Organization movements that were being organized and the Earth Liberation Front actions that were taking place in the Eugene area. I read the article and I told Julie, I said, Eugene sounds fucking amazing. We got to go check this place out. And about a month or two later, it became the Eugene. It was in July.
Sorry, which year is this roughly?
This was 99.
99.
Yeah, 99, 2000.
Wow.
No, sorry, it was the summer of 2000. I had read the article in like the winter of '99. I think June or July, we decided to come to Eugene because the weather was really nice. And of course, there's Saturday Market, there's the Oregon Country Fair. We go up to the MacKenzie, we go up to the Oak Ridge Westford area, we go to the coast. And then also there's all the activism that's occurring within Eugene. I went, we gotta move here. This is where we gotta move. I mean, this is the future home of Mountain Rose. And a couple of months later, we put an offer on a house in Pleasant Hill, and we operated the business there for a couple of years, and then eventually
There, it went.
It was so unsustainable. The growth was so unsustainable. Yeah, it grew exponentially.
Wow, thank you. And I realize I do have one more question before we switch over, which is, thank you for catching us up to the present moment. What comes next? What's the vision for the legacy that you hope Mountain Rose leaves?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, more retail stores, not to be shallow, but
Sure,
yeah,
that's
I want more retail stores because Mountain Rose, we're about experiences. And my marketing team, my leadership team knows right now we don't sell herbs. We don't sell herbs. We sell education, we sell entertainment, and those two things sell the herbs for us. So we've become kind of a multimedia company. We have podcasts, we have weekly video series. So we're focusing more on entertainment and experiences.
Yep.
And no experience, at least to me, beats the submersible experience of working.
Yes.
Like, I've gone in that store 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I never grow tired of it. It's
Yeah.
just such a completely submersion experience. I love it.
Yep.
We hit a tap vein, and we have the perfect formula.
Yeah.
And I want to create those experiences in
Mhm.
every major progressive city throughout the
Cool.
United States. So that's the big plan. But also, we've done everything. The other thing I want to do is radically transform our mission-driven principles. It's really hard to do that when you've achieved everything. I mean, but we really have created new programs that I'm so really excited about.
Yeah.
One in particular that I'm super excited about, Deanna is actually working intimately on it, is that a lot of the herbs that we sell, not too many people know this, but they're threatened, endangered, or at risk in numerous states throughout the United States. And these are herbs that we sell. Granted, we have cultivation programs in place to grow them, but there's still a lot of wild harvesting going on of these sensitive plants. So we partnered with United Plant Savers and we've created a seed giving program. So we've actually created packets of endangered seeds that we give to all of our customers so that way they can cultivate these plants within their own communities, all free of charge. We're not charging for these seeds. We want people to grow and cultivate these plants. One, so that way they don't put a burden on the wild populations, but two, also to raise awareness that gentian in the Midwest is actually extinct, or that echinacea in the Midwest was once thriving in its wild state, but no longer is. So that's the next big thing. But we're also hiring a company, a third-party company, to evaluate and audit every single product we sell. We have 10,000 SKUs, from bottles to containers to teas to essential oils to spices, 10,000 SKUs. This company is going to evaluate every product we have and give it an environmental score. So how much fuel, how much water, how much transportation? Does it come from a conflict zone? Does it come from a conflict-free zone? What was mined to make this particular metal canister or a tin? And we'll have an environmental meter for every product that will be truthful and third-party audited. It'll help us make a much more conscientious decision with regards to our purchasing practices, but it'll also show the level of transparency that we have with our customers. Because some of them are going to be rated really low, and we're not going to try to hide that. And so those are the next two big things. I love coming up with like really creative new things. We've done zero waste. We've done the Mountain Rose River Project, which Brandy knows about, which is a grassroots company driven, company funded organization that does riparian restoration project. We've done the zero waste program. We've done the solar array. Our entire fleet of vehicles, including our box trucks, runs on alternative fuels. We started that 15 years ago. It's like, okay, what do we do next? What's the next big thing?
Yes.
Those two, the sustainability meter and then distributing endangered seeds across the United States for people to cultivate their own plants. I'm really excited about those two things.
No, I'm getting excited here. Cheers. Well, thank you. Thank you, Shawn.
Indeed.
And I feel like, you've mentioned the word radical a few times, and what comes to my mind is the radical transparency with which Mountain Rose conducts itself and you as an individual share. And that level of honesty is rare. So thank you for it.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you.
And maybe we can now transition if we have questions from people. Yes, and I can come around and pour some tea for everybody if they want.
And this is a white.
This is a white.
I can start. Thank you for joining us here and then sharing your story. Thank you for all that you do. What made you choose? I think you mentioned that you came in and then you wanted to do e-commerce, right? So I think during that time, Amazon was just coming up. What made you think that this is going to be a next big thing? Or was there something that really motivated you to go to the e-commerce route?
Wow, I love that question. Thank you. And you're right. In 1999, Amazon only sold books. That's all they sold. They were an online book company. That's it. That's how early our origins at Mountain Rose began. And I'm not saying this because I'm a megalomaniac, but I'm just really good at marketing. I'm really good at marketing. I think I'm built for it. I think I was born with the correct DNA to understand marketing concepts, marketing constructs. Marketing isn't just advertising, it's how you sell something. From its packaging, to its distribution, to its story, to its experience. And in 99, I just knew that the future was going to be e-commerce. I knew that was the next frontier. And that there's only so much money you can make being a mail order herbal company. And I just, I knew which way the wind was blowing. And also it seemed fun. I was really excited about building websites. HTML was back in the day before there was all these websites that are templates and you just put in we had to hand code our website.
I'm so curious how you set up the payment process.
Luckily,
we can talk about that.
Luckily, the e-commerce, the actual cash transaction engine in the background, I didn't build that. That was built in. That part was pretty easy. But these days, you can actually just buy websites and have it up within 24 hours, and you've got immediate cash processing. No, the code that we had to put in the background of the actual shopping cart had to be hand coded, but granted the code for the credit card processing wasn't ours. But it took us like a month or two working every day for 12 to 14 hours a day to build this website.
And how many people were on the team at that point?
4.
Wow. So you 4 learned these coding.
No, it was just 2 of us. It was me and then a hired hand, Julie's friend, Edgar Greenwood out of Barberville in Humboldt County. It was just the 2 of us working until 3 or 4 in the morning, just coding, getting that website up as quickly as we possibly could. Very exciting times. I look at new websites now, I'm like, oh my God, these guys are cheating. They're it's so easy. It's so easy. I own a historic hotel in Ashland, and we built the website for that. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, if only we had this in 1999.
But if you had it in 1999, so would everybody else, and maybe it sounds like the
Big
first
time.
mover advantage.
First mover advantage, yeah. So no other herbal company was selling online until 6 years after us. I mean, it took them that long to catch up. By then, we had controlled and dominated the e-commerce market for organic herbal products, and we continue to this day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah.
Additional questions?
So this is not specifically ST related, maybe more business related, but it seems like you have a pretty strong company culture. You're about the experience. What's your strategy in hiring people to kind of help support that? How do you continue to kind of stay true to those values?
Wow, that's interesting. Love that question. I was just talking to my executive leadership team about that yesterday. All of my directors. So I have a CEO and I have an executive vice president, and then I have 11 directors underneath them. That is the core group of people that run my company. All of those people have absolutely no professional experience in what it is that they do. Cameron, my CEO, has never run a company before. Thomas, my executive vice president, has never assisted in running a company before. Elisa, my HR director, has no HR experience. And I chose those positions based on their personality. What is on your resume and your professional attributes has no part to play in the running of an organization. It's the person, what they're made up of. Who are they? Civility is really important in the workplace. So, when we interview people, we want to determine, is there any hostility in this person? Could they be civil? Are they a very free-flowing and gregarious communicator? But don't get me wrong, obviously when we're hiring, we need to look at professional attributes, but we hire based on the characteristics of the person first. And my leadership team in HR, even to this day, know that that's a priority in our hiring process. Yeah. So it's a cultural attribute that's very unique to Mountain Rose. When I meet with other company owners or other companies, we seem to be like the bastard black sheep child that does everything so unconventionally. It's actually really uncomfortable for me to hang out with other large business owners because I don't understand how they talk. For one, it's just not how we operate as a company.
Yeah, well, it strikes me, Shawn, that you said like marketing is just something that comes to you easily. But from that, it also sounds like identifying people's talents and then putting them in positions to succeed is another. And to kind of buck the tradition of you have the relevant experience for this position, therefore here it is, rather finding the right people for the right positions.
Yeah.
In our micro team, that's a challenge. And you can imagine as an organization grows that there's got to be some of your secret sauce built into that side of things.
There is. Yeah, there is. So yeah, for sure. Like Jessica, she's our marketing director. And most marketing directors for a company the size of Mountain Rose, you have to have an MBA. You have to. As a matter of fact, you're not even going to get an interview unless you have an MBA. Jessica has no marketing experience. She actually started in customer service about 6-7 years ago, and she was promoted to the marketing director 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
And it's because she has a genuine enthusiasm for telling a story in a compelling manner. Like, you can't learn that in school.
Yeah.
You can't get a degree in that. And that's what I want to harness.
Yes.
And she is doing a phenomenal job.
Well, and the creation of this event, I can say that enthusiasm came through loud and clear. So
Better.
yeah. Thanks, Chris. Great. Maybe 1 or 2 more questions.
Yeah, I have a question and just story sharing it a little bit. I'm trying to remember the year you and I met. It was 2010 or 11. Do you remember?
Actually, I think it was 2010. It was the first year that we moved to our headquarters in West Eugene.
Because you were still in Pleasant Hill. So I'm Brandy Ferguson. I worked for MacKenzie River Trust.
And that would be 2009.
For 14 years. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Because I started in 09. And I was one of 5 staff at the time. We didn't have a business supporter program. And I don't remember how we crossed paths. I think I just picked up the phone and called because you had expressed some kind of interest and said, hey, we'd love to come out and talk to you about our organization. So we got to come out to Pleasant Hill where you were, we got the tour of the facility. We went into the administrative offices, was about this size in my mind. And you had Thomas, I think, was doing photos in a little window over here, and your desk was there, and you had a couple other staff here, and everybody this big table in the middle, and that's where we met. Where other people were working on the edges, we were, introducing what does the MacKenzie River Trust do, and would you consider supporting us? And we came away. It was like our $500 donation, I think, our first business supporting the organization at the time, and which long story short, inspired an incredible business supporter program that supports the organization at over $150,000 a year. That said, Mountain Rose Herbs was one of the business sponsors for a lot of our events over the years, really set the bar high, an example of what to invest in, organizations that are doing good work that suddenly other local businesses were like, oh, I'm going to support this work too. But that said, I think even to this day, between Mountain Rose and Shawn Donnille personally, it's definitely the top 10 of supporters of MacKenzie River Trust ever, total giving, which is huge, about talking about, just exactly what the stories you're sharing. You invest in what you care about. And that in turn helps to inspire others to do the same. And what an incredible experience, especially with my role with the trust for so many years, to get to learn from you.
Mhm.
I've learned a lot.
Thank you, Brandy. Yeah, there's a little bit of truth to that. We realized actually probably about 15 or 20 years ago that aligning ourselves with nonprofit actually enhanced the brand. Now, we weren't looking at it just from a brand and marketing perspective. You got to remember that's what I'm built for. But it was also genuine. Like, I wanted to work with nonprofits, not just give them money. I wanted to like be their best friend. I wanted to go out on adventures with them. I wanted to help clean up and restore and plant. And I wanted to build a genuine friendship with the nonprofit, but also share that story of that friendship with the nonprofit with the rest of the world. And before you know it, yeah, at the time, we were the only corporate supporters of conservation in the state of Oregon. Actually, until 4 years ago, we were the largest corporate contributor to environmental nonprofits in the entire state of Oregon. We took that title away from Patagonia 11 years ago. So for many years, we were MacKenzie River Trust's largest corporate supporter. And then other companies started going, oh, shit, well, there's this thing called sustainability. And if we're going to be sustainable, we should probably, I don't know, give this nonprofit $500 and we'll call it good.
Yeah.
Then we started seeing lots, but a lot of them were well-intentioned as well. There's a lot of amazing companies here, but, and I'm only poking a little fun, but then next thing you know, everybody is really beginning to support nonprofits, and good, they should.
Yeah.
They absolutely should. It's the rent we pay for not only being on this planet, but for operating a business on this planet. It's the rent you pay for being here. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you for saying that. Really good.
So have you grown the business by reinvesting the capital and the profits, or if you had to get outside capital to grow the business? And if it's, from reinvesting, is that what's enabled you to have more radical, let's say, hiring approaches and these measures that outside funding might be like, what are you doing?
Yes, absolutely. Mountain Rose will never have an outside investor. It has one owner, and it has one secretary, one treasurer, and one president, and that's me. I don't want anybody else influencing the company. And that's exactly what you have when you partner with investors. You're beholden to those investors. Everything has been self-funded. Matter of fact, we didn't even have debt in the form of like debt with Summit Bank until 7 years ago. Like, everything was cash on the barrel. And Cameron came on as our CPA and our controller 7, 8 years ago. And she said, Julie, Shawn, you guys really do need to have debt. And me and Julie are like, what? Fuck that. We don't want any debt. Absolutely not. They said, no, it looks good on the books. It develops a relationship with the bank. 10, 15 years from now, you might need $20 million, and you're not going to get it unless you have a debt relationship with the bank. So we conceded. So the only real debt we have is with our local banks. Recently, we're engaged in a really massive expansion program. And I want to look at securing a substantial amount of funding. And I had Deanne and Cameron, there's my girlfriend. I had her and Cameron, who's now my CEO, research all of our investment options. And I didn't like any of them. I didn't like any of them. And so what we did is that we renegotiated with Summit Bank, and we got all the money that we absolutely need from them. So we're just doing business with our local bank. But no, I don't want to accept anybody's money ever. And it's interesting to kind of digress a little bit, but I'm now considered a veteran in the industry, because once you're put in 20 years, you're a veteran. I've been at it for 24 years.
And have recently received APA as environmental steward.
Yeah, thank you.
Second.
Yeah. I got an
Huge
industry
honor.
award. Yeah, a huge honor. But in our industry, the organic herbal products industry, and that's the key word, organic. Like, the herbal products industry is huge, but the organic herbal products industry is really small. That consists of like yogi tea, that consists of traditional medicinals, that consists of herb farm, that consists of Star West Botanicals, Frontier Natural Products. It's a very small industry. In the last 5 years, there has been so much consolidation by private equity firms to gobble up and consume all these organic herbal products industry, to consolidate the industry. And being a veteran in the industry, I can say that because I'm so anti-capitalistic in nature, I will never sell Mountain Rose. And Mountain Rose remains only one of two last remaining independently owned organic herbal products companies. That's it. Every other company is owned by a trust or an equity fund, capital venture firm. It's disgusting. Our biggest competitor, Star West, They're half our size. And they were acquired 2 years ago for the astounding sum of $98 million. 98, and they're half the size of Mountain Rose. And Cameron came to me and she said, if the firm that bought Star West were to use the same financial model to acquire Mountain Rose, I did the math, you could sell the company for $147 million. And for job security purposes, I need to know if this company approaches you, would you sell for $147 million? And I went, didn't even think about it. I said, absolutely not. No, I don't need $147 million. I got all the money I want. And I said, Cameron, you have 2 sons. Would you sell them for $147 million? You know, Mountain Rose, it represents the fabric and fiber of my being. It's my DNA. Like I could never sell that. But it also comes down to the fact that I love what we do and I love the company. And I told Cameron no. Fast forward 2 months after that conversation with Cameron, the same firm that acquired Star West had called our offices 3 times. They emailed me twice and sent me a letter wanting to acquire Mountain Rose. And Cameron was promoted into the role of CEO. And I said, Cameron, I'm tired of these guys contacting me. I need you to reach out to them and kindly tell them to fuck off. And that's what she did very professionally. And
we had Cameron do it.
I probably wouldn't have said fuck off, but it would have been close. It would have been really close. But I'm very apprehensive about money and I'm very cautious about money. And I understand that money just changes things. So I'm very conscientious about how we get it, how we spend it, where it comes from.
Well, Shawn, I'll say on behalf of everybody here in the Eugene tea community, thank you for that conscientiousness and thank you for the work of Mountain Rose to truly create an anchor for an ecosystem of businesses that's inspirational.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll draw this to a close and say thank you all for coming and thank you, Shawn and Mountain Rose for hosting and supporting this event.
And I would love to hang out, but we've got a birthday party to attend in Coos Bay.
Oh yeah, you do.
And it starts at 3, so we got exactly 2 hours to get there. But it was a genuine joy. I love being here. I love engaging with my community. I love seeing familiar faces. Brandy, we really do. We have a lot to talk about, so let's connect soon. We are out of here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.